Hello pipe community, Bear Pipe here. Today I want to talk to you about buffing. You know, when I started this channel about 9 months ago, I had this idea that, you know, I'm fixing up pipes and I'm doing work on them, and maybe there's one or two things that somebody would want to do to a pipe and they want to know how to do it, and I could put something on here and people will see it. And part of my idea with that was that I do it with basic materials. I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it down to earth. I don't want to have fancy, expensive equipment to do this with, so that somebody could do what I'm doing in their house without having to make a major financial investment. Hence the name Bear Pipe. Bear being simple, down to earth, bare bones, nothing special. And of course, my surname, which in Afrikaans references a bear, as a nice little play on that. But when it comes to buffing, this is one area where it's hard to do without spending money. And I have, in fact, spent some money on setting myself up with some buffing equipment. And it's the one thing that you probably, as a pipe smoker, would want to invest in, whether you restore pipes or not. The reason being that you can clean your pipes nicely, you can keep your stems nice and sharp. There's a lot you can do with buffing that's going to make your pipes look good. And so the question is, can you do that without spending a ton of money? And today I'm going to show you my setup, which is not an inexpensive one, but by no means the most expensive that you can get. But before I do that, I want to talk to you just about some cheaper options, because I did for a while do this on a shoestring. If you have a hand roll with a variable speed, you don't need to spend a lot of money to get yourself set up with some buffing equipment. And what I did for the longest time was I would clamp my drill to a table with a wood clamp. Or later on, I actually put it in a vise, and I would take a zip tie and I would tie it around the trigger on the drill, and I would tighten it until I got just the right speed, and then I would have a buffing wheel in the drill. And I tried a variety of buffing wheels, and some of them work better than others. So I want to show you what I've done and what works and what didn't work for me. This is the first one I tried, which is the old sheepskin on a Velcro backing. You get these in the automotive section in a variety of automotive stores. This didn't work very well for me, not because of the fact that, you know, the shape is a problem or anything. It was the sheepskin itself. It was just a little too rough, actually, to give you that nice glassy shine that you were looking for. So this didn't work very well. Then I upgraded and I went for these guys, which is a bowl buffing wheel. It's a round shape. Again, not too great for a couple of reasons. One was the shape didn't quite work for a pipe. And the second one is, once this thing starts turning, it gets quite hard and was a little too abrasive, I found. So not a great solution. But what did work well was these guys. This is a 4-inch linen buffing wheel. This was stitched when I bought it. I took out the stitching, so it's nice and floppy like this, because that's what you want. I bought these on eBay for about $5 from China. It took about 6 weeks to get here, but at the price point, I got 3 of them, which is perfect, and they work like a charm. Stuck them in the front of the drill, got the speed just so, and I had one for my Red Tripoli, I had one for my White Diamond, and one for my Canuba, and they work like a charm. Now, you have to go and buy the buffing compound. You can get that at any woodworking store, and it's not that expensive. You're looking at maybe spending about $20 on your buffing compound, $5 on this. You're in a good, decent buffing setup for a couple of dozen dollars. And so I wanted to make you aware of that because that kind of fits with the philosophy of this channel. But my buffing setup that I use today, I've upgraded a little bit because of the fact that it takes 10-15 minutes to set this up every single time. I got tired of that. I wanted to have something that was permanently set up. I spend a little bit more money on that, but you don't have to do that. There are more expensive buffing setups out there even than what I have. If you have a lathe and you're willing to spend a little more money, you can set yourself up with the Beal buffing system, which is really fancy and does wonders, but it's hundreds of dollars to get yourself set up with that. So I'm not even going to go there today because that's not what this channel is about. So let me show you my setup, and then I'm going to show you just a little bit of how I buff, but I'm not going to get into the whole technicalities of buffing too much today because that's a rabbit hole that probably needs 2 or 3 videos of its own. And so I'm not going to do it justice today if I try and cram it in with this review of the equipment. This is my buffing setup. It's inside a closet in my basement next to my work area. And I can close the door on it and it disappears and the room looks decent and tidy when the door is closed. It's a very simple setup. I've got a bench grinder. It's an 8-inch variable speed. I keep the speed at the lowest setting, which is 2000 RPM. And I have 2 8-inch buffing wheels attached to it. Essentially, it's very simple. You take off the setup with the stone grinding wheel on it. You buy these collars, which are a couple of bucks each, and replace that the stone wheel with these collars with the buffing wheels attached. I've got one side that has a single buffing wheel. I've got the other side with a double buffing wheel at the moment. I've been experimenting with the double wheel. I like it more, so I'm going to be replacing this one with 2 as well. Now, you need 3 types of buffing compounds, starting with a fairly rough one and then going up to very fine in the Canuba wax. So, first one is the red Tripoli, which is this wheel here, and I'll show you what it looks like. That's the red Tripoli compound. I rarely use this one, and I'll tell you why. Because I use micro mesh pads on my briar and on my stems, and that takes it up to a level that is higher than what the red Tripoli does. And the only times I use that is if I have some persistent scratches that I can't get out. I'll buff it down with the red Tripoli and then bring it back up again. The second one, which is on here permanently together with the Canuba one, is the white diamond. The white diamond is a compound that looks like this. It's kind of like a powdery material. And that's the one that I use generally as my first buffing coat. So I'll run the pipe past on the buffing wheel with the white diamond. That gives it a fairly decent shine actually, and it takes all the little micro scratches away. And then the final coat, which is the Canuba wax, is kind of like the glossy shine. This is the Canuba wax. It's very hard when you buy it like this. You melt a little bit of this onto the buffing wheel with friction. And then what you do is you transfer some of that onto the pipe. And it gives it that glossy, glassy finish that people look for. One of the things I've learned with this is a little material goes a long, long way. Put very little on. Rather put too little on than too much on the wheel when you do this. And I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I buff. Okay, so when you're buffing, first step is safety glasses. Always. Because these things have a tendency to jump out of your hand. The other thing you'll notice is that I have covered over the logo. Especially on the white diamond, I want to not use the logo. And I usually stick my finger in there. Now actually, I'm going to take this stem off because it's got a fairly long stem. Just for the beginning, I'm going to take that off. And we're just going to put a little bit of... That's enough material, actually. You don't need more than that. And now I'm going to You see how I start running it over the bowl, but I keep my finger in there because they can easily jump out at you. You can see I'm not polishing the end where the stem is because I'm going to put the stem back in to do that. Okay, now I'm going to put the stem back in. And we're going to do the and you can see I buffed this with the stem and the shank combined so that you don't start rounding off some edges there, which could be bad. And you'll notice that as I'm working the stem, I tend to work it at about a 30 to 45 degree angle. And this is in the opposite direction from where I was using the micro mesh. And there's a reason for that, because now I'm working across the grain that was created on the stem by the micro mesh pads. These areas here at the button, you want to try and let the buffing wheel kind of work into that little groove a little bit to clean it off nicely. Okay, time for the Canuba wax. So I've taken the logo off and so we're going to put a tiny bit on here. And again, I'm putting my finger in there because I want to make sure it doesn't get grabbed and thrown out of my hand. Beautiful looking pie.